Good evening. Brock University acknowledges the land on which we gather is the traditional territory of the Haudenosaunee and Anishinaabe peoples, many of whom continue to live and work here today. This territory is covered by the Upper Canada Treaties and is within the land protected by the Dish with One Spoon Wampum Agreement. Today, this gathering place is home to many First Nations, Métis, and Inuit peoples, and acknowledging reminds us that our great standard of living is directly related to the resources and friendships of Indigenous people. Good evening, good morning, or good afternoon, indeed, wherever you may be listening to this and watching us live. Thank you very much for those who have joined us into today's session where we're discussing a day in the life of a data analyst. I'm pleased to have our esteemed panelists here with us, Professor Anteneh, Ayanso, and Agrima Bhatnagar, and I will invite them momentarily to introduce themselves. But I do want to take a moment to acknowledge all of whom are joining us live and those who have registered, and special thanks goes out to those who have put forwarded us a number of questions for our panelists to address, which we will be going through. I am going to swiftly hand proceedings over and invite Professor Anteneh Ayanso to say a few words before we ask our guest speaker to also introduce herself. Dr. Anteneh Ayanso.
Thank you very much, Abdul. Thank you for assisting us in organizing this panel, A Day in the Life of a Data Analyst. Hello, everyone. My name is Anteneh Ayanso. You know me as a professor of information system at the Goodman School of Business and currently teaching data analytics courses. And it's a great pleasure to be joined here by one of our MBA alumni, Agrima Bhatnagar, I believe 2015, but you'll hear more from her. It feels like yesterday, but nothing keeps you happier than seeing one of your students after many years of success and many years of accomplishments. And thank you for organizing this, Abdul. So I will ask Agrima if you could please tell our audience your journey, how you get to be where you are here as a senior manager, beginning from your training in India and coming to Canada, studying at Brock in the MBA program. And if you could please walk us through the journey that took you where you are at the moment. Thank you.
Absolutely. No, thank you so much for having me. It feels so great to be back. And I'm really honored that I can come and talk about a little bit of my journey so far. So thank you for having me, Dr. Ayanso, and thank you, Abdul, for putting all this together. Really appreciate it. So a little bit of myself. My name is Agrima Bhatnagar, and I am a Brock alumni. I graduated in 2014 from the MBA program. Professor Ayanso was one of my professors, so I very clearly remember all of our classes. Currently, I am working as senior manager for analytics in Scotiabank. And it has been indeed a very, very interesting journey. So I am an engineering graduate. I finished my engineering in computer sciences from BITS-Pilani, India. And then I straight came to do my MBA. And I guess it's the combination of technical knowledge and a little bit insight on the business side that really prepared me for the field of analytics. And it's over these years, I've had some great opportunities to learn about industry trends and what's new and upcoming, and all of that together has really made it possible to be in this wonderful place. So yeah, it has been a very wonderful journey so far.
Excellent, excellent. Thank you. It is indeed, and it's great to see you where you are right now. So we have received a very long list of amazing questions. To be honest, we have to be here all night to address all of them, but we'll do our best. We'll try to perhaps aggregate some of the questions raised, and Abdul and I will be alternating depending on the case. And I would like us to begin with a general scope at the national level. What you think, based on your own experience and navigation, what you think is the scope of a data analyst job within a Canadian business environment? What does the scope entail, or tell us about for anyone graduating in this area, graduating from this area?
Yeah, absolutely. It is a very important and a very popular question. And the reality is that the beauty of data analytics is it's very versatile. So it can be implemented in any industry, any business, irrespective of what part of geography you're looking at, what side of business you're looking at. It can be so flexible, and it is so high in demand now because businesses have started really understanding the value of data. We have started understanding that how much they can conceive from the intelligence that business analytics can provide. So the demand is really high, and it is very, very evident. Yes, the job market fluctuates from time to time, but that's because of the economy, inflation, a lot of other factors. But if you really look at from a perspective of the requirement of data analysts across the board, it has been all-time high. With really, really great options and programs, and a very lucrative career for someone who's really interested in it. So it's a great place to be, and the fact that this is the right time. If someone is in school right now, especially Brock, I think this is one of the wonderful programs that the university is providing, and definitely a great start for a very successful career.
You touched on a great point there in terms of there is a growing trend and also a degree of need, as an intensive degree of need for the role. What are some of the specific skills that you anticipate, or from your experience, that recruiters and organizations are looking for someone to be a data analyst? And what do you anticipate some of the future trends in this area to be? Especially, if I can bring in ChatGPT and the advent of AI. It only took us to question 2 to bring that into the equation.
That's actually very true. So I think what data analytics or any kind of analytics we're looking at specifically I wouldn't say it very far off, but like in the last couple of years, there has been a shift from a focus on the technical side of things. Previously, even if you were going for a job interview or you were talking to somebody, everybody would immediately tell you that you need to have some strong technical skills, you should know some programming languages, you should know how to use data engineering tools, etc., which is true. It is a part of requirement, it is necessary. But lately, what has actually started coming into focus are soft skills. And those are extremely important in terms of building a successful role for yourself. So when I say soft skills, it's about presentation, it's about communication, interpersonal skills, negotiation, decision making. All of these are extremely important to flourish in roles related to analytics. Think of it as an entire project management experience. So you are handling the entire set of information right from cradle to grave, which basically requires you to deal with not just the data in front of you, but also your stakeholders, managing expectations, being able to share those insights and recommendations. Those are some of the things that organizations are now looking for. They're trying to depend on data analysts to simplify the process, to be the bridge between the technical side and how it can be converted into business intelligence. So that's something to really keep in mind. And like you pointed out, it's a very dynamic industry. So you have these new disruptive tools coming in every day. So ChatGPT, AI is on Prime. You have really Hadoop and Spark and Airflow. All of these, you have something to learn on a daily basis. So that's another thing to keep in mind, because it is very dynamic. It is extremely important to keep yourself updated, to have that continuous learning in mind, to be able to open yourself to new opportunities. So that's one of the important things to have for this particular role.
Let me expand on this and maybe ask you a related question. As you know, our program is positioned within a business school, and our graduates are, including yourself, primarily MBA students. And in terms of the training environment you come out of and the opportunities that are out there, how does someone coming out of our program position themselves to start their career? What kind of entry-level jobs you think should be more responsive and more effective for someone to target? If you could please maybe walk us from your own experience and many other classmates that you have been working with over the years.
Right. So I am biased towards Brock, and I will say that the entire experience of 2 years, all the courses that you have, all the program structure that you go through, it is really impeccable. And I think you realize it once you're done, when you take a step back, because when you're actually in the program, you're so concerned about grades and classes and assignments and projects and everything. But I really urge everyone right now to take a step back, look at the big picture. Everything that we do during school has a very strong impact or an influence on how you will be as an employee. Whether it's working in a team environment that gives you leadership experience, that teaches you how to multitask, whether it is working on 5 courses in an entire semester that tells you how to prioritize, whether it is coming up for a presentation that prepares you from a communication perspective. And all of these skills are not just limited to school, they're very transferable. So when you enter the workforce, you're already prepared, you have a little bit of practice. The only thing that you really now need to focus is on learning the business, understanding what that organization is about, what that industry is about. So that's something that you will only learn when you are in the field, but everything else, you have it. It just needs to be a little polished, it needs to be put together. So that's one part of it. The transition from school to any kind of position, it's a tough spot, because you are kind of trying to convince the employer that you're able to support what the business needs. So it's very important to study the job descriptions. It's very important to have an understanding of what you really want to do. If you have focus in a particular, let's say you are interested in the financial industry, or you're more on the marketing side of things. So it's very important to have a very clear understanding of what you want. Focus on what the industry is trending towards, what are some of the things that are important. So for example, right now, there's a lot of focus on machine learning, there's a lot of focus on AI information. You have these pipelining and data prioritization tools, data visualization, so Tableau, Power BI. All of these things are high in demand. So it'll be an additional asset on your resume to have those, along with all the experience that you have gathered throughout the program. And one thing I want to touch upon, I know when you're out of school, and I think everyone's guilty of doing that, we immediately want to jump into something of a very complicated role. We want to go into data sciences. We want to go into a very complex, high-level role. It's okay to start a journey from the basics. It is okay to gain some entry-level knowledge, to understand the business, to understand how you can add value. Because at the end of the day, if you are able to convince wherever you are, whichever organization you are, if you're able to convince them that you actually have something to bring to the table, you automatically rise, you automatically succeed in your career. So don't be shy, don't be, I would say, somebody should not be discouraged with the fact that I'm starting from just a data analyst. It's not a problem. It's a successive way to proceed, and the experience that you gather throughout that journey is what's more important. So that's something I would really suggest based on what I've seen with my friends, myself. So yeah.
those are some really good points in there. And one of the journeys that typically our students that will go through a program that they will endeavor is through getting into an organization and getting a foot in through co-op placements, for example. That's a quick way for many. So it's a low risk approach for both the students to experience the culture of the organization, experience the nature of the field, and also to allow an opportunity for the organization to test out, if you will, that particular individual prior to them becoming a longer term employee for that search. So this is, given those significant benefits for both sides, it's a winning formula, and a lot of folks are targeting this approach. From your experience, what are some of the companies, or who are some of those companies that individual students could be researching or targeting when it comes to data analyst positions?
So yes, 100% co-op opportunities are a great avenue for kind of tasting or like, dipping your feet into the water. It gives you a perspective of what the organization entails, what's the culture, what you can bring to the table, what you can learn there. Is it a good fit for you as well? So it definitely opens up a lot of opportunities. And something very important is that when you work in an organization, you're able to make connections. You're able to network with the right people, right department. You're able to forge those long-term relationships, which goes a very long way because it's a really small world. In terms of what organization one should take a look, I believe data analytics, because it's so flexible, it's so versatile. It is available. So if we open LinkedIn right now, or we check out any of the job engines, you have a demand for data analysis, business analytics, all across the board. But again, because we are very close to Toronto, I would say the banking industry definitely is one that always looks forward to data. We have other organizations like insurance and I would say consumer goods, etc., which definitely needs a lot of analytics. And even in terms of insurances and estates, etc., there's a high demand of analytics. So those are some of the things which one should really look at. There are also other sectors like oil and energy sector, which are now opening up to analytics. So there are always a lot of requirements there. You can try any place. Like you can look for any organization. You can try any industry which is to your interest. I know of someone who had really deep interest in marketing, but they ended up on the analytics side. Now they are working with a marketing firm. And they have so much of scope to provide and to flourish there. So it's a very versatile field. All organization, wherever there's an opportunity for co-op, especially, I think it should definitely be kept on the list. And even on the government side, actually, there are so many government opportunities where they're hiring for analytics. So one should definitely keep an eye out there too.
All right. There is one common question we get from our students, and that's with respect to the scope of the term analyst. Depending on what noun you use in front of it, the term analyst is a very broad term. We now hear job advertisement. We see job advertisements with the term business analyst or data analyst. And I often get questions from students, am I a business analyst? Am I going to be a business analyst or a data analyst? And I know the title of our webinar is A Day in the Life of a Data Analyst. But what do you think from your own organizational environment? What do you think is the difference between the daily role or the general role of a business analyst versus a data analyst? And how do students prepare for this kind of confusion as well as demarcation going forward?
Absolutely. The lines are very blurry between what a business analyst and a data analyst actually stands for. I'll talk about how they're similar. So in terms of the expectation, task, the perspective of understanding data, being able to find trends, analyzing information, putting it together, making recommendations, preparing data for visualization perspective. So this is something which is shared between both the roles. The only differentiating factor which stands out nowadays in organization is the component of that involves basically focus on organizational structures, the methods, the systems, the problems that they're trying to solve. And when we say business analyst, it's more focused on supporting the immediate needs of the business, trying to identify whether it is market penetration, whether it is client growth, whether it's revenue growth. So those are very specific specific requirements, specific problems that organizations are looking for. And if you're supporting those kind of needs, if you are supporting those kind of departments, then you generally are called a business analyst. But if you're working with the highly technical teams which are looking at the raw data, when it comes to data ingestion, data engineering, then it's generally called as data analyst. So that's the distinction. However, in terms of the skills you need, the requirements that need to be brought to the table, they're very similar. And it is depending on what role you're trying for or which particular field you're applying to, you can use this interchangeably. The experience is exactly the same. So even if you're putting it on a resume, do not feel discouraged that I did data analytics, but I'm not a business analyst. It can be interchangeably used. And it's very, very similar.
So my expectation would be now any business analyst must be savvy with data. So it comes with a data analysis expectation at the same time. So it has a higher scope. All right, thank you.
Thinking about the starting role, but also the next role up, that succession plan needs to be part of the thought process. You know, on day one, you start your new role, you are approximately 2 years and 364 days away from your next role, roughly speaking. And with that goal in mind, perhaps, you know, what are some of the skill sets, and in particular, perhaps the technical types of skill sets, if you were to make that distinction for the data analyst role? What maybe, let's say, the top 3 skills that you would advise focus on? And then the next level up, so at the manager level, what are some of the skills over there at that level that you would perhaps want to focus? If you can talk through some of those differences and where the focuses should be, please.
That's actually a very, very good question. Also a tough one. So I think when you're just starting off, let's assume we are in a data analyst role, the top 3 things that really strikes me would be having a very strong understanding of data. And I know it sounds very generic, but really knowing what information you're looking at, what are the fields, what are the basic, are there any anomalies, do we see any immediate trends? So really knowing your data in and out is the very first requirement. In terms of technical skills, absolutely, you would need a little bit of a programming background. It's good to have a little bit of, I would say, data ingestion models or data programming. All of these would be on the technical side of things. And then finally, the third thing, which is very important, is data visualization nowadays. So that's another step after you have analyzed the data, you've taken a look at everything. But how do you present it to the stakeholders? And that plays a very, very key role in your growth, because what differentiates a data analyst with a manager is the ability to basically communicate what your findings are and to showcase the storytelling concept. Are you able to look at all the fine points and fine-tune them for somebody who's, let's say an executive team or a management team who just have 15 minutes for you? Are you able to translate all that technical piece into something which a business can actually use? So that preparation at a very initial level really helps to make a big difference. And that is also one of the major differentiating factors you see that helps you move up. And then once you get to a managerial position, it shifts a little bit. So now you still need the technical side of things and the understanding, but now your soft skills play a very important role. So critical thinking, decision making, the interpersonal and communication. So those take over, and that's where you start now dealing with stakeholders directly. You are more in the presentation mode. You are part of the strategic decision making, and you can be also a strategic influencer. So these things is generally the differentiating factor between the two roles. And to get to the next level, it's very important that you start preparing when you're in your current role. Because the moment you start displaying those skills, you start telling people that I have what it takes to go to the next level, it really makes an impact. So when you're up for the next promotion, when you're up for that next job, that next role, people already remember that what value you can bring to the table, and that goes a very long way.
Now, as a professor, I have a different perspective on work-life balance because we have a very different routine. But I can imagine with someone like you who deals with people on a daily basis, and then I have project, pressure, deadlines, milestones, KPIs, and everything. How did you manage that? And what would you advise for new graduates in terms of doing things better than maybe what you managed and what took you longer, to address in your own experience? Are there any strategies for young graduates to do early on and manage work and life at the same time? If you could speak on that.
Yeah, no, absolutely. Work-life balance is a very popular, it's a very cool term nowadays, and it is very important. And I think you start realizing it once you get into the deep end, and you want to take a break. So I think one thing which is very important from a perspective of data analytics is it can get busy. You can have multiple deadlines. You can have year-end requirements, industry trends that need to be taken care of immediately. There could be things on that cannot wait. So those things happen from time to time. It can also be very seasonal, depending on what industry you are. If you are dealing on the RSP season, if you're dealing with the income tax season, so those factors will always play a role in your day-to-day. But what really important is, and what I actually appreciate about the Canadian workforce, is that there is a very, very strong interest on encouraging employees to have a work-life balance. Organizations are very serious about this concept. They urge people to take time off, and to completely disconnect, to go back to lead a personal life as well. And I think that is extremely important, and that should be done from a very early on stage. It's good to be busy, but you do not always have to be a workaholic. It's okay to reset the button from time to time, and to do that, you always definitely need to first enjoy what you're doing. If you enjoy your work, then half the problem is solved, because then it's not very tedious. It's not like, it doesn't look like a task for you. So that's very important, is like selecting the best fit for yourself. And then once you're actually working or even studying, I would say it's important to respect time. I think if you're able to quantify how much you need to invest and the return that you're getting based on your time investments, I think that solves a lot of problem. Always have a hobby. And I'm guilty of it myself. On weekends, I don't want to do anything. I just want to, sit on my couch, watch TV. But I think it's very important to have a hobby outside work, it could be anything. It could be going hiking. It could be just hanging out with your friends. It could be reading. You need to take those moments for yourself, for your mental health. It's extremely important to disconnect from your work. And luckily, the country we are in, organizations are taking really good measures nowadays, and I don't see it as a problem. But yes, definitely the younger generation. And if I could suggest one thing, is like take a little bit of time away from your phone. I think we are always online. We are always, messaging, chatting, etc. So I think it's good to take an electronic break from time to time, which really helps.
Those are great words of advice. Having a hobby, having life at home, and of course the life at work. So in creating harmony amongst those triad is an important aspect. One of the things that many of our students also have, in addition to perhaps holding a job and having a hobby, and of course they're primarily a student, and there is demands that comes with that, as well as ebbs and flows. You having been obviously a student and as well involved in other aspects of co-curricular or extracurricular components, how are these elements received? So that focus on grades versus, well, not versus, but in respect to other components of being part of the clubs, for example, having the social components, how are they perceived in the job market by the employers?
Yeah, no, it's very true. The focus is always on grades. It is very important, but I think if we take a look from someone who's hiring, from an employer's perspective, they are looking for a complete package. And when I say that, what I'm basically saying is that, do you all of these extracurricular activity, whether you're part of a club, whether you are a part of some volunteering services, it just shows that you take interest in anything that you sign up for. It shows an intent, which is very important. It shows that you are not just limited to the bookish knowledge, but you're also focused on learning about the world. So these kind of activities actually open up avenues. It makes you really look good on paper. It also provides you with so many experiences that you can bring to the table. And a lot of creative ideas, a lot of marketing ideas are generally picked up from consumer behavior, which generally happens when you actually go out of your house and you deal with individuals. When you have these day-to-day experiences, that's when you identify these trends, these analysis that could happen in our daily lives. So from a hiring perspective, it is extremely important that you have some really good skills. There is no actual formula that there's a weightage of 70% to grades and 30% to extracurricular. I think it's an overall experience, and it reflects if you're well traveled, it reflects if you're well read. Even when you join these groups and these activities, you make so many connections. And there are times when I've met people outside of work, and I found out they're in the same industry. So it really helps you to set up those coffee chats. It really helps you to connect with them, get an idea about what they do or how their life is. So absolutely very important. Definitely encourage everyone to be involved. And I'm just going off again by my experience at Brock. We had so many things. The MBA games, or the extracurricular programs that we used to have. All of this, it's a great experience. So one should definitely take advantage of it.
Right. There is a question about fintech. I know you have extensive experience in the financial industry, but the question can be also related broadly to the balance between domain knowledge and the actual data analysis skills. So let's take as an example, for someone targeting fintech jobs, what is, based on your experience, what is the expectation from industry in terms of skill sets? Are they looking for someone strong in finance first with basic skills of IT, or someone strong in IT and analytics first with some exposure in finance? And the same can be applied to some of the domain areas you have within the banking industry, like risk management or some financial assets and so on. So if you could please shed light on that.
Yeah. It's a really good question. So I would say it's a combination. So you definitely need to have those analytical, technical, hard skills, because that's the primary requirement of role, whether it's a fintech or not. So that's one thing we need. The second thing I would say would really help. Yes, having a financial background is helpful, and only from a perspective because you're more familiar with the tools, you're more familiar with the offerings. You have an idea of how the financial industry functions. What are the key, what are the KPIs? What are the things that really are supposed to be taken care of? So it gives you a bit of background knowledge. So it's like cherry on the cake. But I also, I'll again say this, like if it's not like a deal breaker. If someone does not have that financial experience, it's not like you will never have an opportunity to enter. And a lot of this experience you gather from, during a journey while you're on board. You learn about the side of business that you're supporting, whether it's risk management, whether it's compliance, whether you are actually in the retail side of banking, whether you are dealing with taxations or insurance, anything. So it's good to have that knowledge if you are able to get experience prior to applying, whether it's through co-op, internships, your prior experience before MBA, it definitely helps. But if not, even then, it's, please do apply, please go through that process. And ultimately, even the hiring teams, they understand that, it's hard to get a 10 on 10 in terms of requirements. So there are some things which are must. So the technical side of things, the soft skills are definitely a requirement. The financial knowledge is a good to have. So if you have it, the probability might be higher for you to get hired. But again, not a deal breaker.
When we're looking at employers and managers, the data analyst role is prominent in bigger organizations, but it's not quite as prominent in smaller, perhaps SMEs in particular, in majority of cases. So there are a number of new managers, but managers who are now dealing with this new onset of roles. What are some of the some advices that you may have, advice pieces for those managers who are encountering data analysts, are creating the roles of data analysts, and are hiring data analysts? What might be some of your top 3 or so pieces of advice for those managers to set those data analysts up for success, as well as the team and the organization in which they are investing so much in hiring the data analysts?
Yes. So this is interesting because, like you said, data analytics is very prominent with the bigger firms, but still in development stages with mid or small size organizations. I think when you're setting up a team around data analytics, it's very important to understand what industry they're supporting. It all comes down to knowing about the business, identifying the needs that you need to focus. Are we looking at expanding our business in terms of customers? Is this revenue? Is there any kind of competitiveness that we're facing in the industry that we need to focus on? So all of those aspects have to be taken into mind. Identifying your KPIs, again, it sounds very simple, but actually it's very interesting. In data analytics, the biggest problem is that most of the times people don't even know what the problem is. You will be approached with questions, you'll be asked you'll be handed off certain projects, etc. But you'll never receive the exact question, which is very different from school experience, because when you work on a group case or any test or any project, you have all the factors, you have all the variables laid in front of you. There's an exact question in front of you. But in real life, you spend a lot of time just identifying the problem. So you definitely need a team that has that edge of problem solving, critical thinking. They're able to make assessments of where the industry is heading, where the businesses are heading. So trend analysis is very, very important. If it's a starting stage when you're setting up a team, so definitely data engineering is also a part of it, where you need someone to be able to ingest the information, do data cleansing, build pipelines, put it all together, do a little bit of automation. You need someone with strong business background who has some industry experience, so they know what are those key factors that can make an impact that we need to work for. And then finally, I would say is, again, it comes down to the fact that, is it a holistic team? So it needs to be a little bit of group work. We have to have a wide variety of skills and tasks that needs to be done. It's hard to have a perfect combination all the time, but I would say anybody who can handle the process from start to end, and that's where project management comes into play as well. So as a data analyst, project management experience also is very, very helpful. Expectation management is something else that needs to be focused on. So those are some of the very basic skills that are needed when you're starting off with a very new team. And irrespective of the resources in terms of dollar amount or how many hands are on deck, I think we just need to start from the very basic. So yeah, looking at the big pictures is a very important factor here.
As a follow-up, and again, I am highlighting this because these questions comes up again and again from our students. The focus on mastering tools like programming languages, visualization tools, and so on, versus mastering the fundamentals. I have my own philosophy. A lot of people have their own philosophy, but I want to hear from you as someone who was trained within this philosophy from Goodman, going out there, facing the expectations, the requirements in industry. What is your advice for students when they pick up these tools, certifications, programming language? What is one piece of advice you have for them in distinguishing between the tools versus the actual material, the fundamental that they have to learn?
That's actually one of the best questions, because this is something that you realize once you're actually in the field. So there is definitely a controlled combination of both required. The technical side, all these courses, certification, and I know courses like Udemy, etc., are very popular nowadays. So these are very, very helpful. They give you that technical edge. They help you to do the heavy lifting, to do the actual science and putting everything together from a data perspective. So it is important. But the basic fundamentals, whether it is coming from in terms of the soft skills or whether it is the business knowledge, that is also extremely important, because they both go hand in hand. And data analytics it's like a science which has to be presented as an art. So the combination of these two will really be helpful. The focus should not only be on hard skills. It should not just be that we are obtaining 75 certification. It's good to have if that someone enjoys that, definitely. But that's not the only focus. So again, like someone should not be fixated on them. It should not be that, every time there's a new software in the market, there's a new industry trend, that we have to be on board and have to get that certification done in the next 10 days. It's not like that. What really I think important and what goes long way, and especially if someone is looking to grow in that role and get to the next level, enter the managerial stages, it's very important to have the basics down. So whether it is about your business, whether it's about that department, the industry, you need to know it inside out, because that's that really makes the differentiating factor that really sets you apart. Because if you don't know what you are trying to solve, and I look at data analytics as problem solving, if you don't know what you're solving for, it's very hard to get the right answer. So you need to understand your environment, the organization that you want to be a part of, the general trend. So that is extremely important. So those internal factors have a very crucial role, and very often they get overlooked. Similar to soft skills, people sometimes don't pay too much attention to it, but the way I look at it is hard skills are something that you can learn, you can acquire over time. The soft skills you develop, those are things that you cannot just have it overnight. Those come through practice and experience and a lot of time with yourself. So yeah, I would say that they're important, the hard skills, but it should not get overshadowed for the other side of things as well.
Looking to the future a little bit, and this is where I'm going to ask you to maybe dust off your crystal ball a bit. What sort of trends are you seeing in the next 5 whatever years that will likely impact significantly this field? And how can those who are going through programs now can prepare for some of these trends and these impacts that may be along the way?
Mm-hmm. It's a very tough spot with data analytics because it's very it changes every day. There's always something new happening in terms of on the tech side of things. There are always new software coming up, ChatGPT, which is now very popular. So you always have these disruptive pieces that come here now and then. I think one thing that is really on prime right now is machine learning. The focus on using artificial intelligence, connecting it with data sciences, and how we can obtain all of that information and put it to that final use that can give us some very lucrative results. So the core is still the same. It's just that there are these new techniques that are coming to the market. So my suggestion to anyone interested would be, keep your eyes and ears always open. Do keep yourself updated. You have to bring in a little bit of flexibility because there'll be new software every couple of years. There'll be new tools coming in every couple of years. So you have to keep yourself updated. Learning wise, I think at the moment, it's data visualization is also extremely popular. So Power BI and Tableau have really made a huge impact on the market, and everywhere now you see they are asking for dashboards and canvases and those kind of things. So data visualization is also something to be really kept in mind. But yeah, those are some of the things that I would think which can really benefit, and it's good to have on your resume as well.
So I guess this will be maybe the final question before Abdul wraps it up. How important is networking? Because as a students, what we know is to graduate, prepare a nice resume, and keep sending those resumes to employers. But when you look at the world of today, it is extremely networked. You've been on both sides of the equation, and if you please give our students and our audience some advice on the importance of networking. What other non-traditional mechanisms do you strongly emphasize for anyone graduating and looking for a job at this point in time?
Mm-hmm. Networking is it's the key actually, and unfortunately it's one of the most difficult things to do because it's very hard to open yourself, approach individuals, try to connect with them, and everyone has a very busy schedule, so finding those 15-20 minutes can be really hard. But the way I look at it is it's actually a great way to meet industry leaders, to get an insight on what's happening in the market. So when you're in school, yes, the focus is to apply and have the best resume, but having that connection with somebody really goes a long way, because if someone remembers your name, they registered a conversation with you, it's possible that you wouldn't see a result immediately, but maybe 5 years down the line, 3 years down the line, if someone is looking for a particular skill, a particular personality, and you fit that bill, it really is helpful. So LinkedIn is, again, a very good source. One thing I want to tell everyone is not to get discouraged. If you are trying to connect with someone and you don't hear back from them, don't get bogged down. That's totally fine. And if you are able to get through, if you're able to approach someone, don't go in with a mindset of asking for a job. Go in to understand what that person does, what kind of organization they work for, because our end goal is not just to get a job, it is also to build a career for ourselves. So you really want to understand the environment, the goods and the bads of that particular business. Something like the work-life balance we talked about, right? Like it can be industry specific, and some things could be more complex than the other one. So those kind of things can only happen. You can only learn about it when you talk to people. To talk to as many people you can, connect with them, try to understand, put yourself in their shoes, see if that's a good fit for yourself or not. So it's very important. So LinkedIn, yes, it's a great source. I have also seen people actually finding people on organizational websites and approaching them. It could also be a good start. Talking to your professors, seeing if they have any industry friends who they think could help you out. You need to put that word out, and don't expect that it always get fulfilled or it'll be 100% success. That's totally fine. I was actually surprised when I used to do that, or I'm still doing it, and I was surprised how willing people are to help you. And they want to help you, support you, and provide you that guidance. So have to keep a little bit of an open mind. Once you are in the workforce, you should not stop. You should, and again, like I said, it's not like getting my next job, but it's more like having a bit of idea what the other part of that industry does, what the other part of that organization does. So connect with as many as people as possible. And I think what people really do during networking is not really answer your question, but they judge not judge, I shouldn't use that word, but they are really reading your personality. So that really goes a long way. So definitely networking is the key. There are also a lot of mixers actually. If you're able to find that, I think that'll be great. But across all the cities, I've seen a lot in Toronto itself, there are these grad mixers, there are analytics mixers. There's a women in analytics group for Toronto. So those kind of things are also very helpful because you meet your peers, you get to know about their side of stories. So great learning and connecting opportunities. So should always keep an eye out for those as well.
Excellent words in there. I will give you the last word in this sense. What may be your top takeaways that you would recommend for those who are watching this session live and those that may be watching the recorded download stream as well?
I would say, I think everyone is on the right path. ROC, this program in itself is wonderful. It's a great kickstart for a successful future. So soak it up, take all the things that you can learn. Don't just focus on the academic side of it. Try to connect the dots, see how it really will impact the big picture. So every time you get out of a class, you finish a course or you do a presentation, see where it has really helped you. Have you gained something out of it? Because if you can even take one takeaway after every instance, that really, really goes a long way. Also very important is networking. We just talked about it. So communication, building interpersonal skills, connecting with individuals, very important. So continue doing that, and it's a lifelong process. So there's no point where we can stop. So we have to do that all along the way. And then finally, I think is to Dr. Ayanso's point, is having that right combination of technical and business knowledge. It's very important to focus on both. Work on your resume the way you want people to portray your persona. So I think that's very important. Feel free to ask questions. I think that's also very important. Never be afraid of asking for feedback. It really helps, and it shows a very, very good intent. So those are some of the things I think I've gathered along the last few years, and I really hope everyone can take some advantage of these.
Well, I really want to take this opportunity to thank you for taking the time out of your busy schedule to be here to share your insights with us, with our listeners, with our viewers, with our students. And it's so nice to have a fellow Badger back here on the screen and be able to connect and celebrate the success that you have become, and also that of the program. So I also want to take the opportunity to thank Professor Ayanso for being one of the pioneers in this field and giving the business school here a advantage, a first mover advantage perhaps, when it comes to setting up the stream in the area of data analytics. And as a result, many of our colleagues are benefiting from that. I also want to take the opportunity to thank those who have registered for the session and those who are watching us live, and those who have put the questions in. Thank you very much for those contributions, and we look forward to connecting and contributing in the future and bringing you similar opportunities in the future. Have a wonderful evening, day, morning, wherever you may be and wherever you may be watching this. Stay safe.
Thank you. Great.
Thanks for having me.